92 man-made islands located in the eastern part of Ponape Island and rising from the waters of the Pacific Ocean, built on a coral reef, and occupying an area of about 130 hectares. The length of individual islets reaches hundreds of meters. They are composed of huge hexagonal and octagonal basalt columns weighing from 1 to 10 tons. Scientists still people are wondering by whom and when they were built, and most importantly by what technologies. The official history tells us that in ancient times people were only at the beginning of their technological development and lived in tribes, hunted animals, made clothes out of their skins, knives out of bones, and so on. But when you start to understand at least a little bit about all this, you start to check this theory, the hair just stands on end. The real story it is different from the history that is taught to us in schools and universities. In the era of great geographical discoveries, Spanish and Portuguese and Dutch and British sailors returned from long voyages and told many incredible stories about amazing things, stories about the Pacific Islands scientists usually considered fiction and sea tales, sailors' fables, and therefore did not believe the narrative of the Spanish captain Alvaro Saavedra, who in 1529 told about the amazing island that was between the Hawaiian archipelago and the Philippines. Captain Alvaro said that on the island there are ruins of temples and palaces and strange large buildings in a fireplace embankment. According to him, the abandoned city vaguely resembled Venice. For a long time geographers considered the mysterious city of Ponape a legend until the island was visited by the Russian sailor Fyodor Letke during a circumnavigation in 1826. He made maps of the island, described the mysterious ruins of Ponape and mapped the neighboring islands. The most serious archaeological studies of the ancient city of Ponape were undertaken at the end of the 19th century by the German scientist Paul Holbrook, who identified all the islands inside the lagoon and also found reservoirs of artificial origin. Those who built the data brought basalt slabs to the northern part of the island, stacked them side by side along and across, and if the blocks were irregular in shape, the gaps between them were filled with coral rubble. The upper parts of many platforms were flat, convenient for the construction of buildings. During strong tides the space between the platforms was flooded and the town was covered with a network of canals resembling a small Venice. 90 such artificial islands were mapped. Artificial pools, foundations of palaces and temple structures were also discovered. In 1908, Holbrook's book dedicated to the study of Nan Madol was published. As a result, the remains of about 800 stone buildings were discovered, including fortress walls and port buildings. The main temple was erected from megalithic blocks. Under this temple also found a network of tunnels and channels through which people and boats could penetrate there. In another temple of smaller dimensions, the inner part was like an inverted pyramid. This is a very complex architectural technique. A fortress wall of gigantic masonry was erected around all the buildings of Nan Madol, but most of all the researchers were struck by the thoughtfulness of all the port structures protected from powerful breakwaters in these parts by breakwaters and artificial reefs. Narrow passages to the lagoon of Nan Madol were protected from uninvited guests by bastion towers. Just imagine, in ancient times people built whole islands, built cities on them, and scientists tell us about the Bronze Age, digging sticks and so on. Just think about it. Get into the scale. We have just learned how to build man-made islands, and to this day it is not an easy task. Thousands of construction machinery, workforce, special technologies, thousands of specialists, architects, engineers work on projects. And scientists tell us that people used to live in tribes and were stupid and uneducated. And suddenly these uneducated tribes create 90 man-made islands. For this, friends must have developed infrastructure, technology. You need to have a powerful help that would unite people in such a colossal work. For example, such as the state. If you like the issue, friends, put likes and subscribe to the channel, because there are still a lot of interesting things in front of you.